However, unfortunately, I didn't think it was very good. They played a video, and it was the same video for every single degree, apart from maybe like having a person from that particular school speak, and it was just a video, and there was no mention at all of the actual graduates. So it felt quite impersonal, whereas I feel like a physical graduation ceremony is meant to be a personal celebration of what you've achieved. And so it was quite sad that they didn't really provide a sufficient alternative. I presume it could have been because they were hoping that in the future the graduation ceremony could have been done properly. However, I'm a pessimist, and to be honest with you, I'm not entirely convinced that that'll ever happen at all. If it does, that'd be great. But if it doesn't, and they have to change the 2021 graduate ceremony to be virtual as well, I'd like to hope that that's made more personal than the one that we had. Because I think it's really important to celebrate each individual who's graduating and not just essentially celebrate the institution that you went to, because I don't really think that's the point of a graduation. The other thing that was brought up was a cappella. As I mentioned in my first episode of the podcast, I was heavily involved with my a cappella society when I was at university. I was on committee for 2 years, and in my final year I was actually vice president, which was really awesome, and I very much enjoyed getting involved with that. However, in the final few months of my involvement with the society, plans significantly changed because of COVID, and for a society like a cappella, this was greatly significant because a lot of what we did was so reliant on having face-to-face contact, such as rehearsals and performances. If you don't know much about a cappella, it's basically when a group of people sing together without the accompaniment of any musical instruments. So, because of that, it was very much something that is primarily done face-to-face. However, when COVID hit, obviously there were no choices. A lot of our annual plans had to be changed. We normally did 2 showcases, one in winter, the other in spring. However, we couldn't have a spring showcase because of the pandemic, so we had to change what we did with that, and there wasn't enough time to come up with a virtual alternative, so we had to give that a miss, which was obviously really hard for me and many others who were leaving the society because we didn't get a final showcase. We went to our winter showcase thinking it was our penultimate one, and we never got to have that final one, which was really sad. Also, our annual ball had to be cancelled, which normally took place in May, just before exams, and we couldn't have that in the way that we intended. The difference with the ball was, because it's a social event, it was far easier to adapt it to be a virtual event. So we had a Zoom ball in June, and we had awards, and it was really, really lovely. Obviously, it would have been so much nicer to have it face-to-face, but I think during these troubling times, people have adapted and learnt how to have fun using alternative methods. So I'm really happy that we did have a ball, even if it wasn't the ball that we were all hoping for. However, musically, it was far more difficult for the society to adapt when I was there. I'd really like in a future episode to have people who are currently in the society featured on the podcast to discuss the changes that have taken place this year in terms of rehearsals and things like that, because we didn't have time to put that into place when I was a student. As I mentioned, a cappella is something that's very reliant on being face-to-face, so it's probably taken quite a bit of work to adapt it. In my final few months of this society, I was lucky enough to record a virtual performance of the song Rise Up by Andrew Day, and that is one of the most special things that I've ever done with the society, because the song and the arrangement, I think, really brought a sense of hope to a lot of people who listened to it. We got messages on the Attitude account of people who said they cried because it was just really nice and extremely poignant and really gave them a sense of hope. So I'm very proud to have been involved with that. As well as that, I also took part in a virtual recording of a Katy Perry medley in the large group interchorus, and those were the first 2 virtual adaptations that the society made, and since then all 5 groups have done amazing virtual performances, and it's really amazing to watch how they have changed and grown through these difficult times. So I'm really hopeful that they can do more with that in the future. The obvious way that people have adapted during this time is working from home. A lot of people who have office jobs have been allowed to do this for the first time in ages, or those who previously only worked 1 day a week have been permitted to now work the whole time because of the pandemic. And actually, I think this is something that may stay relevant for future, because now that people are aware that it's possible to host meetings online rather than face-to-face, I think there will be fewer trips abroad for business and more Zoom meetings for businesses, because it will save them so much money. And I do think that while a lot of face-to-face contact can't be replaced because of the importance of human contact, some of it, which is an extra expense for businesses, will be reduced and replaced with online meetings, because they've been forced to adapt during this time, and now they know that it's possible. They may as well save money in the future. I have been working from home with my social media job, and I have really liked that. I started working there when I was living in Cardiff, and I went into the office and things like that. However, just like any other office business, because of the pandemic, all of us now work from home. And it's actually been quite convenient for me, because I live in London, but the business is located in Cardiff. But I still definitely wanted to stay involved, and that is why I am now going to be working there 30 hours a week, which I'm incredibly excited by. I feel most sorry for those who are key workers, because adapting during the pandemic from a business sense is far more tricky for them. However, I like to think that things are getting easier. I think that's the best possible hope I can bring, because of this roadmap out of lockdown that has been put in place, and because the vaccines are now being put in place. I hope that those who work on the front line in whatever industry, retail, health, other council work, I hope that your jobs will go back to being far more manageable in a safer environment. My hat goes off to school staff as well, who have massively had to adapt during this time and change the way that they teach their students. And with the news that schools in England will be going back in March, I hope that everybody stays safe when that happens. But honestly, fair play to all teachers and school students as well for having to deal with the constant changes of whether or not you're going to school face-to-face or learning online / teaching online. So honestly, well done everybody. I know that pro doesn't mean much coming from a nobody like me, but I'm still very happy and grateful for everybody who's doing their part to make this pandemic easier.
It's time for tea and talk.
Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. This one was a bit of a happy-go Philly one, let's say. But I did want to talk about adaptability for a bit, because I think it's an important subject, especially during this time. And I look forward to recording the next one. Thank you so much for 70 listens / downloads. I don't even know the terminology. What the frick am I doing this? But honestly, I really appreciate every single one of you. And I will hear you. I got it right! Oh my god, yes, I got it right. I will hear you all next time. Goodbye.
It's Wednesday at 11, so you know what that means. It's time for tea and talk. Oh, what's that? Bitch, please.
Hello, and welcome to Tea and Talk, the podcast where I get to do two things I'm particularly passionate about. Drink some tea and just talk a lot.